This is a case that really gets to you. The disappearance of Bryce Laspisa.
Yeah, it's just tragic.
We have police reports, witness accounts, security footage,
Right?
but still no answer to the most important question. What happened to Bryce?
Yeah, it really is a mystery.
So let's try and put together everything we know about what happened leading up to Bryce's disappearance.
Okay, sounds good.
And see if we can maybe get a little bit closer to understanding this incredibly sad case.
Right.
So this story starts with a seemingly normal young man, Bryce Laspisa.
Right.
He was born in 1994 and moved to California with his family
Mm-hmm.
and eventually enrolled at Sierra College.
Yep.
And his freshman year seems to have been pretty uneventful.
Yeah.
You know, he had friends, he was dating.
He was doing well in school.
Yeah, he was doing well in his classes.
Yeah, seemed like everything was,
Pretty normal.
going well for him.
Yeah.
And then sophomore year starts in August 2013.
And everything changes.
Yeah, his behavior just completely changes.
The sources talk about withdrawal, erratic behavior, possible drug and alcohol use.
Yeah, there's mention of a drug called Vivance.
Oh, right. Vivance, that's usually prescribed for ADHD.
It is, yeah, but it's a pretty powerful stimulant,
Mm.
especially when it's used recreationally and in, high doses.
So you're saying that could have played a role in his behavior?
It's definitely possible we have to consider that,
Yeah, absolutely. We can't rule anything out at this point.
Right?
So we have a possible explanation for why Bryce might have been acting differently.
Mm-hmm.
But what about his actions themselves?
Right.
There are some things that happened on August 27th that are really concerning.
Yeah.
Like what specifically?
Well, he broke up with his girlfriend, Kim Sly.
Over text.
Yeah, just over text.
Wow.
And then he sent this really strange message to his friend Sean Dixon.
Strange how.
It was just really deep and kind of out of character for Bryce.
Huh.
And then he also gave away some of his prized possessions.
So he's breaking up with his girlfriend. He's sending these weird messages to his friend and giving away his things.
Yeah.
It does sound like he was getting ready for something.
Right.
But for what?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have an easy answer.
Right.
So then the next day, August 28th, Sean calls Bryce's mom, Karen.
He was worried about Bryce, right?
Yeah, he was really worried.
Okay, so Sean calls Karen,
Right.
and then later that night, Bryce calls Karen from Kim's apartment.
Exactly. And he's saying that Kim won't give him back his car keys.
Oh, so that's where the car comes into play.
Yeah, and this is also where things start to get really complicated.
Why is that?
Well, Kim actually talks to Karen, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she tells Karen that she's really worried about Bryce.
What did she say specifically?
She said she didn't think he was in any condition to drive.
Wow. So Karen's got her son calling her, saying his ex-girlfriend won't give him back his keys, and then the ex-girlfriend calls and says that he's in no shape to drive.
Yeah, basically.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah, it must have been so difficult for her trying to deal with all this from hundreds of miles away. So Karen tells Bryce to just drive straight home.
To Laguna Niguel.
Right, to Laguna Niguel. And she promises to fly out the next
It's
day.
in California.
Yeah, to meet up with him and figure things out.
Okay, so it sounds like they had a plan.
Yeah, they did. But Bryce asks to call her back before her flight.
And he does call her back.
He does at 1 a.m.
But we don't know what they talked about.
Right. That's the first big mystery in this case.
What did they talk about?
We just don't know. There's no record of that conversation.
So we're missing a piece of the puzzle already.
Yeah, and it's a pretty important piece.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, the next morning, Karen and her husband, Michael, they find out that their roadside assistance was used by Bryce
When was this?
at 9 a.m.
And where?
Bakersfield.
Bakersfield. So he was driving.
Yeah, he was definitely on the move.
And they also find a credit card charge in Buttonwillow, California.
You got it. Got it.
Hold on. If he left Kim's apartment around 11:30 p.m. the night before,
Mm-hmm.
where was he all night before needing roadside assistance at 9?
Right. And why is he in Buttonwillow?
Buttonwillow. That's not even in the right direction.
No, it's not. It's like he was going the opposite way of Laguna Niguel.
So many questions.
I know it's a lot to take in.
Okay, so Karen calls the gas station in Buttonwillow.
Yeah, she talks to Christian, the owner.
To see if he remembers Bryce.
Exactly, and Christian does remember him.
Yeah.
He says that Bryce seemed totally fine.
Really?
Yeah, and he said Bryce told him he was driving home to Laguna Niguel.
But he wasn't. He was going the wrong way.
I know it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so hours later, Karen calls Christian again.
Just to check if Bryce had left.
Right.
And you're not going to believe this. Christian went back to that spot. Bryce was still there,
He was still sitting in his car at the gas station.
Yep, hours later.
What was he doing?
We don't know. That's another big mystery.
He just sat there for hours.
Apparently.
It's getting weirder and weirder.
I know.
Okay, so then what happens?
Well, by this point, the police are involved.
Because Karen and Michael reported Bryce missing.
Exactly.
And they find Bryce at the gas station.
Yeah, sitting in his car.
So the police talk to him.
Yeah, they ask him what's going on, why he's still there.
And what does he say?
He says he was sleeping.
Sleeping.
Yeah,
Did they give him a sobriety test?
they did, and he passed.
And did they search his car?
Yeah, they did a pretty thorough search, but they didn't find anything suspicious.
Wow, so Bryce is sitting in his car at a gas station for hours. The police show up. He says he was sleeping. They don't find anything.
Yeah, it's a strange situation for sure.
And then what do?
They make him call his mother.
To let her know he's okay.
Right, and they tell him to drive straight home.
Okay, so finally he's going home.
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you?
But there's more.
Of course there is.
An hour later, Christian goes back to check on Bryce again.
No way.
I know, right?
And Bryce is still there?
Still sitting in his car.
What is going on?
I don't know, but clearly something's not right.
So Christian actually confronts Bryce this time.
Wow.
Yeah, and he follows him for like 10 miles to make sure he actually leaves.
He was really concerned.
He was, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't be?
So Bryce is finally driving again.
He is.
And he's talking to his parents on the phone.
Yeah, they're staying in touch, trying to make sure he's okay.
Right.
And at some point, Bryce says he's tired and needs to pull over to sleep.
That makes sense. It's been a long couple of days.
Yeah, but he doesn't stop. What? He keeps driving, and security cameras actually catch his car running towards Castaic Lake.
Castaic Lake.
Yeah, around 2:15 a.m.
But that's not on the way to Laguna Niguel.
Nope.
Okay, this is so confusing.
It is.
So he's driving towards Castaic Lake at 2:15 a.m.
Right?
And then
Get this, the same camera catches his car again 2 hours later.
he went back.
It looks that way. Yeah, heading in the same direction.
It's like he was driving in circles.
It's really strange.
Like he couldn't decide what to do.
Maybe.
Okay, so he's driving around Castaic Lake in the middle of the night.
Right.
And then what happens?
Well, the next morning, the police have some bad news for the Laspisas.
What happened?
They found Bryce's car
Where?
crashed at the bottom of an embankment
Oh, no.
near Castaic Lake.
So that's where he was going?
Seems so.
And
Bryce.
here's the question.
Right. Was he in the car?
We'll talk about that next time.
Okay, so we'll leave it there. For now, we'll be back soon with part 2 of this deep dive into the disappearance of Bryce Laspisa.
See you then.
Oh.
So the car was found at the bottom of an embankment
Right.
near Castaic Lake,
Eh.
and the back window was broken.
Broken from the inside.
Yeah, it looked like it had been broken from the inside.
Interesting.
And there were a lot of Bryce's things in the car.
Like what?
His wallet, his phone, charger, clothes, stuff like that.
It's like he just walked away.
Yeah, it's really strange.
What about Bryce himself?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Right. Was he hurt?
There was some blood found in the car.
But no Bryce.
No, they searched everywhere.
What do you mean everywhere? I mean the lake, the surrounding area.
They had divers.
Divers, helicopters, search and rescue teams, dogs, the whole works.
Wow, and nothing.
Nothing. They couldn't find any trace of him.
But the dogs picked up his scent, right?
They did, yeah.
Where did it lead them?
Well, first it led them to a nearby dam.
A dam.
Yeah. And then to a truck stop not far from the crash site.
And then what?
The trail went cold.
So the last place anyone or anything tracked Bryce was a truck stop.
That's right.
Do you think someone could have been waiting for him there?
It's possible.
Maybe he got a ride.
Maybe he did.
Maybe he just wanted to disappear.
That's another theory we have to consider.
Right. And we know that there were reported sightings of Bryce after his disappearance.
Yeah, about a month later, a police officer in Oregon thought he saw Bryce.
Really?
And then there were a couple more unconfirmed sightings in that same area.
So maybe he did run away.
Maybe.
Maybe he staged the whole thing.
It's possible.
But if he did, why haven't we heard from him?
That's a good question.
Why go through all that trouble just to disappear and never contact your family?
It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
No, not really.
But we have to keep in mind that we don't know what was going on in Bryce's head.
Right, we can only speculate.
Exactly.
So years go by, and then a skull is found near the crash site.
Yeah, that was
2018.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what Bryce's parents must have gone through,
It must have been devastating for them.
thinking that they might finally have some answers.
And then to find out that it wasn't Bryce's skull.
Right.
Just heartbreaking.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
And then in 2021, there were rumors of another body being found in the area,
Oh, wow.
but those turned out to be false too.
So after all these years and all these investigations, we still don't know what happened to Bryce.
That's right.
All we have are theories.
Yeah, and we've talked about a few of them already.
Right, like the theory that this was a suicide attempt gone wrong.
Yeah, we know that Bryce was acting erratically.
He gave away his belongings. He drove his car off an embankment.
Right, it seems like it could have been intentional.
But he survived the crash.
Yeah, he did.
And he got away from the car.
That's true.
And his parents have always insisted that he wasn't suicidal.
Yeah, they've said that from the very beginning.
So maybe it wasn't suicide?
Maybe not.
What about the theory that Bryce had a psychotic break?
That's definitely a possibility.
Especially if his Vyvanse use was a factor.
Right. The drug could have had some serious side effects.
Causing him to act irrationally. Making him lose touch with reality.
Potentially.
But the people who interacted with him during those last few days didn't say that he seemed delusional or anything like that.
That's true. Christian at the gas station said he seemed fine.
And the police officers who talked to him said the same thing.
Yeah, so maybe he wasn't having a full-blown psychotic episode.
Right.
But maybe he was still struggling with something.
Yeah, something that we don't know about.
Exactly.
And then there's the theory that Bryce intentionally ran away.
That he staged his own death.
Right.
And started a new life somewhere.
We know that he left his belongings in the car. He seemed reluctant to go home.
Yeah, he kept stalling.
And the last place anyone tracked him was a truck stop.
Right. A place where he could have easily gotten a ride.
And he told his mom that he had a lot to talk to her about.
Yeah, like he had some big secret or something.
So maybe he was running from something.
Or running to something.
We just don't know.
You know.
It's a mystery.
It really is.
And it's a tragedy.
For Bryce and for his family.
Absolutely.
He's just so sad.
It is so sad.
To think that he's out there somewhere.
Or that something terrible happened to him.
We may never know the truth.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Not knowing.
Not knowing what happened to Bryce. There are some other things in this case that I just can't get past, like what happened to Bryce's phone.
Right. His phone was never found.
It's like it just disappeared with him.
It really is strange.
I mean, our phones are like a part of us these days. They track everything we do, where we go, who we talk to.
Exactly.
So if we had Bryce's phone, we might be able to find some answers.
Yeah, we might be able to see who he was talking to.
Where he went.
What he was doing.
Right. But we don't have it.
No.
So that's another piece of the puzzle that's missing.
And it's a big one.
It is.
And then there's the matter of his car keys.
Oh, yeah.
The car keys.
At first, everyone thought they were with Kim.
Right, because Bryce told his mom that Kim wouldn't give him back his keys.
Exactly. But Kim said she gave them back to him.
So where are they?
Nobody knows.
It's just a small detail.
It is.
But it seems important.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
You need keys to drive a car.
Right.
So if Bryce didn't have his keys, how was he driving?
You're right.
It's just another one of those little things that doesn't quite add up.
It's like we have this big picture of what happened, but then there are all these little details that just don't make sense. And those little details could be the key to solving this whole thing.
Yeah, but we may never know.
We may never know.
This case, it's just a reminder that sometimes people disappear.
Yeah.
And we're left with more questions than answers.
That's right.
It's frustrating.
It is.
It's sad. And it's a reminder that we don't always get the closure we want.
Unfortunately, that's true.
But we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the disappearance of Bryce Laspisa.
We have.
We've looked at the timeline, the evidence, the theories.
We've explored a lot of different possibilities.
But ultimately, the mystery remains.
Yeah. We still don't know for sure what happened to Bryce.
Maybe we never will.
Maybe not.
But hopefully one day, new information will come to light.
Yeah, I hope so.
And we'll finally get some answers.
That would be great.
For Bryce's family.
Right.
And for all of us who have been following this case.
It would bring some much-needed closure.
It would.
So if you have any information about the disappearance of Bryce Laspisa,
please contact the authorities.
Even the smallest detail could be helpful.
You never know what might break this case wide open.
That's right.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you though.